Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the If You Ask Me podcast. Today, I have a close friend of mine, a special guest, who I'll be introducing in just a second, but I want to thank you for tuning in. Today, we're going to have a great conversation about this friend of mine's that I'm going to let him do the bigger intro, but just lightly, I met him earlier last year, maybe this year. I can't remember exactly, sure, but it felt like it's been at least a year, and we hit it off from day one. This is Obi, my brother Obi. Arellano. See, I'm sorry. We don't talk in last names rarely, but
I know.
Obi like Hobie.
Yeah.
Without the K. So Obi.
Or more like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah. Thank you for spending some time with me today, Obi.
Yeah.
Tell anyone watching, if you would introduce yourself. Who are you, sir, so that they know, like, who's in this room?
Obi Arellano. Who am I? Pues I'm Obi. Now, I'm currently, like what I do right now, I'm the founder and CEO of Exponential Español, which is a organization that helps faith-based leaders, pastors, be able to multiply their ministries, their churches, their groups, everything multiplication.
And Obi, is there a lot of church planting and all that? Like church planters, working with church planters?
Yeah, definitely.
Because there's that side of working with people who have churches already, Exponential, and trying to help them, be effective at what they do. But there is a sense of also that you work with church planters.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely both.
Is that the new thing, or is that something else?
No, it's both.
Okay.
Because
you're part of that as well. Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm I lead Exponential Español. I also serve as the region director for Latin America for New Thing. And New Thing, it's also a catalyst for movements of reproducing churches.
Okay.
So yeah, they both work with pastors and church planters to multiply their efforts of churches and leaders and groups and networks and movements.
Yeah. And brilliant. And Obi, to that, for anyone watching, Obi has decades of experience in this field, in his respective field. He's someone who's traveled many parts of the world. He travels a lot, literally, and
I literally just got here.
A couple hours ago
from Chicago. Yep.
Obi is he's just I would, in many ways, a humble, serving individual that just loves to pour of himself into other people, and I'm one of the recipients of that. So I appreciate you, Obi, for putting me to some degree under your wings, teaching me a lot, and I definitely see you as a big brother and a mentor. And so I value who you are, I value what you represent, I value what you've done. And I'm confident that whomever's tuning in can find value in what we're going to talk about, because you have an incredible story that I want to kind of have this moment to share it, and we'll talk about those 25 plus years or so that you've been grinding out and doing what you do. So Obi, thank you again for being here, and let's dive right into this. So right where you're at right now in life and what you do, it's been about how many years?
I guess officially 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
2 decades.
Yeah, but a few more years getting to the point of launching me to what I'm doing now. Yeah.
So let's just say 20 years plus.
Yeah.
20 years plus.
Yeah.
That's an accomplishment in itself to be able to say that, right?
Yeah.
Let's go into the first year of those 20 years.
Wow. I mean, you want to go right
Let's go right into
it.
that history, man.
Yeah.
Like, why? Here we are today, right? And what you do, and you're part of these massive... The organization you're with, Exponential, it's a global organization,
it
right?
is.
It's recognized all over the world, right?
Yeah. So Exponential...
Touch on that a little bit,
Exponential is an organization that was started to help churches and leaders and networks and church planters be able to move towards multiplication. Exponential doesn't necessarily plant churches, but we resource churches and pastors and denominations and church networks and all that. Exponential has the largest library of resources and content for church planting and church multiplication. And that was started 2005 by my pastor and mentor, Dave Ferguson. And about 5 years ago, Exponential started just increasing its impact to where I kind of came in, or not necessarily came in, but I went ahead and started Exponential Español.
Yeah.
To offer the same type of resources and content for Latino leaders in the U.S. that, that's what we're doing. At the same time, while we were launching Exponential Español, there was another couple leaders launching Exponential Europe. So then what started here, what I started doing with in Español, there's another team doing similar things in its context for Europe, in Europe.
Yeah.
And the last couple of years, 2 years ago, I think, just coming out of pandemic, another group of leaders started Exponential Australia. So Exponential is global.
Literally a global thing.
Literally global. Yeah.
Obi, why did you get into this? How did you get into this?
Yeah.
This is where I think we go back to year
that's
one.
That's
year
where
one.
that
year one. -5.
It goes back to -1, -5, -5. So I'm a Christ follower. So if anyone who's watching that is asking what's church planting, what's multiplication, that's within the church world. I'm a Christ follower. Yeah. I found my way back to God when I was a junior in high school. And I think that's where the story begins.
Okay.
It goes way back,
bro.
Like I told you, it goes way back. So...
Wait, I got to interject with something real quick. Right. I have more gray hair than you, Obi. And I find that wait... Because you don't look like you would think, man, this guy's not 25 years in this. You look great, bro. You look really good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I had to throw that in there. You look great, man.
I appreciate it. I'm 41 years old, just to make it clear.
I'm 38, feeling like 48.
but you're way more active than I am.
You know what? Maybe.
No. You shouldn't feel 48. You're good, bro. Keep at it. Keep staying active. Yeah. That's the best way to live longer and live healthier. Yeah. I need to be more active.
So sorry, I just had to interject.
No, I appreciate
the beard looks great.
Yeah,
the beard looks good.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a lot of.
It adds the illusion of wisdom and the illusion of being at this for a long time.
Oh man,
that's why. That's the trick, bro.
That's the trick.
If you let your beard grow a little bit more, you'll be surprised.
So from here on out, I'm gonna on the podcast. I'm gonna grow the beard so I get a little bit more. A sense of that, attention. Like this guy, he must know what he's talking about. Look at his beard.
That's it, bro. It's the illusion. That's all. That's the secret right there.
Oh man! All right, so let's go back to the year -1, right?
-1, yeah. So it actually began there because I found my way back to God, and I was like, I'm one of the few people, at least in this faith world, that they give they surrender their lives to Jesus, and they want to live the way God wants us to live. Mm-hmm. And for me, what happened happened in that time, I started asking God, okay, God, if you want to bless me, and if you have a purpose for me, what's that purpose? So I started asking that question. Yeah. At that time, my passion and my dream was to be an architect. Even in high school, I took some college prep classes for architecture, and my dream was to go into architecture. Mm-hmm. So as a junior, I already had applied to some colleges to study architecture. This was in Chicago, and there was a university in the Chicagoland area that I was going to go. Yeah. They had already accepted me, all that stuff. And I say this because that's a important part of
the story,
part of my journey and part of my story. Because at the same time as I was prepping for college and to become an architect, I was asking God, what do you want me to do? Like, what's your purpose? Doesn't everybody ask that?
Of course. 100%.
And I mean, I think everybody asks us when we're coming out of high school, or right now, I was gonna say we're in our 40s. You're not in your 40s.
You're almost there. I look like you're correct. I'm telling you, I look like 48.
But we're like, decades after high school or years after high school. We're in different seasons of life, sure, right? Yeah. And we still ask ourselves, what's my purpose in this season? And I do understand that there's seasons. We live in seasons. Seasons come like, I don't know, every 2 years, every 5 years, or 10 years. And I think there's purpose in every season. Yeah. And I was asking that question, and I felt like one of my mentors, that was discipling me, guiding me through what it means to be a Christ follower, right? I feel like he was the one guiding me and speaking to my life, seeing things in me that I did not see in myself, and especially speaking some of the God's words or purpose for me, because that's kind of how I hear God when I pray. God, talk to me or show me something. Like for me, it's not like
The
an
voice from
audio, the
heaven,
voice for
thunder
having
coming down, and
no. It's I feel like God speaks to me through other people. God speaks to me when I read, and it's a feeling that you sense it, right?
internal.
It's an internal thing. And in this, in this season of my mentor guiding me through this, discipling me, he had what we call "I see in you" conversation. And "I see in you" conversation is when someone looks at you and say, "Bro, I see in you. I see in you something. I see in you something special. I see in you the capacity to do amazing work." That's the type of conversation that he had with me. And he said, "Obi, you know what? I see in you a great leader. I see in you a pastor." But he went beyond that. He's like, "No, like, but more than just a pastor, I see you someone who starts churches, a church planter."
Very specific. Then that was very
He got
specific.
very specific. I was 18 years old.
It's crazy.
I was just coming out of high school.
I imagine you're not even thinking about this. You
Not
have
at all.
no idea about this world of I'm going to try to even go in that. You're talking about
No.
architectural stuff, right?
Yeah,
You're going in
yeah,
that
yeah.
direction.
That
You got
was
this
like-
guy telling you this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was fairly new. I had been in my faith journey for about a year in. But going back to that prayer, what's your purpose? What's my purpose? And then what he said resonated, and it felt like, man, is that you really saying this to me, God? So I kind of took that and took it into prayer. And I'm like, God, was that you really speaking that to me? Is that what you want for me and from me? And it took a couple months, because I continue asking people, right? Mentors, people that I trusted.
Smart, right?
Yeah, people that I trusted that had been on this journey before, for counsel and advice. And after doing that and continuing to ask God for guidance, I felt like he was calling me for that.
You felt it.
I didn't know what it meant. It just felt real. And it got me to a point where it was like a crossroads. I had, I'm walking this road. To one side, it's a direction of architecture, and to the other one, this direction of church planting that I had no idea what it meant, right?
Yeah.
But the conviction that it was God's calling for me to do that, I'm like, I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to start walking that path, that direction. So all my dreams that I had for the architecture, I kind of just...
But Obi, sorry to interject. When you... It's an important piece right here. When you said you had the two options, and then you go that route, the unknown route, the stuff you're not sure about, how long... I think you mentioned it. I think you said it maybe a couple months of praying through it.
Yes.
But I just want to emphasize real quick, that wasn't overnight.
Oh,
that
no.
decision wasn't overnight. That decision was, how did you process that? Because I think that is going to resonate with people as they understand when you got to make big choices.
Yeah.
Maybe you got to give it some big time.
Yeah.
Right? What would you say
I think for me it was a process of like maybe almost 2 months.
Okay.
To maybe almost 3 months from that conversation, the I see in you conversation, to getting to this point where like, I'm going to do
Decisions
this.
made.
Okay, I made the decision. And the process was talking to mentors, talking to people that I trusted, praying through that, reading through scripture to see how God can guide me through the Bible, right? There's so much wisdom that we find in the Bible as well.
Obi, did you get to a point of peace?
Oh my gosh.
Was there a sense
Yes.
of, because I feel like that should also, if, maybe emphasizing on that point too, because going places without peace is extremely scary.
Yeah.
Going places with peace still can be a little scary,
Yeah.
but at least you have
Yeah.
this peace
Yeah.
that you're like, no, I'm here, and come whatever may come.
I think
This is where I'm at.
you said the right word. Throughout my journey after that, my wife and I have done some crazy decisions. We've moved across country. We've lived in RV for 10 months. We've moved to Mexico City. We've moved back to the States, lived in Long Beach. We've just moved across country to back to Chicago, amongst other things, right? Giving up my dream for being an architect to start this journey, planting churches, starting new churches, then leaving that behind to start Exponential Español. The common denominator for us and for me has been when you make a decision, no matter how difficult it is, and no matter how unclear the path towards that looks, the peace is what is constant throughout.
That's amazing.
And you know that you're making the right decision because even though you don't know what's ahead, even though you may feel like, I don't know what I should know to be able to walk that road, that comes along as you walk the journey, right? But the peace is the constant thing. And for us, that's what makes us, okay, yeah, we feel peace with this decision. We're gonna continue. The motto for my wife and I, the last 7, 8, no, maybe like the last, actually more, but it's been more clear the last 6, 7 years, is where God guides, He provides. And we've done so many decisions knowing that if God is opening the door and He's guiding us to something completely new, if there's peace, we know that God's a part in the midst of all that. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad we took a second to really emphasize that, because a decision like that is a lifelong decision made where you have 2 decisions to make and you go, I'm going, this B route because we have peace. And then you fast forward 25 years and it's like, because it was the decision early on from that place. So awesome. So you make this decision, you go into this new journey. What does it look like, Obi? Because I imagine it's not going to be just high moments. There's got to be this experience of which we all experience in life, them ups and downs. And how much of that was reality in 25 years? Because I assume you've had your fair share of downs. How much of that was it? And not just how much of it, but how did you deal with it?
Man, that's a loaded question. And not necessarily easy to answer. At least the first one, yes. And the answer is there's a bunch of ups and downs. Just because I made the decision to do what I felt God wanted me to do doesn't mean that everything was going to be great and all the doors are going to open like that. In fact, for me, it took from that moment, I would say almost, 2000. I'm trying to do the math in my head. At least 5 or 6 years until we felt like God was opening the door to like a specific direction that was going to help us be better equipped, better positioned to get to where we are today.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What comes to mind is the idea of like, just when God calls you to something, it's not necessarily because you're ready for it at that very moment, but maybe it's like you got to go through some schooling, His schooling, right? Not just our academic credential experience where, I'm going to go get a piece of, some education on the subject so that I can do the job or do the call. But there's a different type of schooling that God sometimes takes us through that isn't the funnest, right? And we go through the desert for some period of time because He's working in us so that we can be ready down the road. So that's what comes to mind when you mention
and you know what's
that.
crazy about that? If we put all this in light of the Bible, the Scripture, God's Word, most stories of God guiding someone,
that's the blueprint.
Is after years of working in them, working in their hearts, shaping them, molding them to eventually get them to where He wants them to. I mean, I'm thinking of Moses, for example. Moses was a Hebrew boy, but born in a slavery time, but out of these crazy happenings ends up being raised by the daughter of the king, right? So he's raised as a prince, being a Hebrew boy. And God wants to use this Hebrew boy who's a prince to save God's people from slavery. And when it dawned on him, when Moses finally felt like that's what God wanted to do in him and use him for that, he thought it was gonna be right away. He's like, I'm gonna do justice here, and ends up killing somebody. It's a crazy story, right? And God's like, no, that's not the way. So he took him out for 40 years. He waited 40 years to actually come back and then save his people, right? And I can go, I mean, a bunch of stories are coming to my mind about that.
Can I interject with one story, Obi? Even recently, I went to a film festival to watch a red carpet premiere of Tyler Perry. Are you familiar with Tyler Perry?
Mm-hmm.
So Tyler Perry is this man has done what people can only dream. But this movie's about a documentary of his story. This isn't like actors acting out. This is just a full-on 10-year decade worth of material that they pieced. It took him 10 years to tell his story. What you hear is the stuff that he went through as a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, they talk about that in full detail. Verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Like, he went through some of the worst things. And the person that was speaking, I think it was his cousin, one of the things that it'll just stick with me, I know forever, was that what happened to Tyler Perry can easily be something that should destroy this man. Like, he should not succeed in life. He should not pursue life. He shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But he did.
Yeah.
And then when you hear Tyler talk about it, because then Tyler Perry starts to share his reason why he believes to some degree why he's done what he's done, was because it was a way of forming him. Like, there was his creative self, his hardworking nature, his work ethic, all of that comes from something that had the horror, the bad, the ugly that happened in his life. Yeah. So I hear you, and when you say this, I want to revisit this thing where I think you said, like, God will work in us first, and then what comes to mind right after that is before he works through us.
Yeah.
So it's
exactly.
like so just because he calls you doesn't mean you're ready.
Exactly.
All it means is you're ready to start learning this new formation that he's going to do in you. And some of them don't have the best experience. Like Moses, the example you gave, and many other biblical characters. Yeah. And then you even got Tyler Perry where a lot of, he gives all credit to God. Like, everything I've done, every story I've created, everything I could think of, every successful experience I've had, God was there. Mm-hmm. And the way he gives that credit to him is almost like, in other words, the way I'm interpreting his story is, I don't know if I would be the same person. In fact, it's almost confident I would not have been where I'm at now. I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't been able to do what I've done had I not gone through this horrible experience in the past. And what's crazy is that this man, like, still forgives his dad. Like, he still takes care of his dad.
Wow.
Like, it's special. It really is special. But yes, I wanted to throw that in there because just in the case that someone thinks like, oh, well, these are old characters back in the days that who know. Tyler Perry is one example in our lifetime right now.
Oh yeah.
And the message that was pushed was, hey, you might be going through some tough times. You might be going through a valley. You might be going through some beat down. But there's hope.
Yeah, exactly.
And what God has for you and wants to do through you and with you, it doesn't end there. That's just part of a story, part of your story. And I think there's just something beautiful that I wanted to touch on that. So,
and we just have to work hard, hustle, and do whatever we need to do in that season.
In that
season.
Tough, challenging experience. 100%.
Yeah.
Obi, so let's go from, you go through this, 20, in 25 years, there's some downs, there's ups, there's downs, but you're still pushing and you're still getting there. What are some of the most impactful things that you're proud of in what you've done in 25 years? Do you have any? Does anything come to mind? Do you have a top 5, top 10, top 2, top 3? What are you most proud of in what you've done in 25 years?
I think something that I've done that I did early on in my story, in my journey, and something that I've done more recently. Early on, I felt like God was what he was calling me to do, right? So I did it. Yeah, like I ended up switching. So fast forward through those few years, right? I was going to study architecture. I ended up switching my career. I decided that because I'm like, if this is what you're calling me to do, I'm not going to spend 5 years in architecture school and spend over $100,000, if not more, for something that I know God is calling me for something else. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time and money to do that. I ended up switching my studies, and I ended up studying biblical theology, pastoral theology, and that's what I have a bachelor's on right now. And because for me, I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna be doing this, I want to be prepared. I don't want to just do it just because you call me and you're gonna open doors for me. So that was important. But then, as soon as I finished, I started planting. I started working. I started hustling. And me and a friend of mine, we ended up we launched the first church. I was 22 years old at that time. At that time, at least in the church setting and the church culture that I was learning, and becoming Christ follower and doing what I ended up doing at that time, it was like, if you're going to be a pastor, man, you have to put in your work. I didn't know any pastor under 50 years old. At least in the tribe that of churches that we would collaborate with or connect with.
Yeah.
And it was said, like, it was expected. Like, if you're gonna pastor, you're gonna put your time in. Start from the bottom and climb until you've put 20 years, and then we'll consider you the pastor. I'm like, no. So I started questioning the status quo, right? That there was a status quo that I'm like, why does it have to be like that? I questioned everything. And one of those things is like, why are you going to make me wait 20 years to do something that God's called me, and I already prepared for that, to do that? So I just did it. It wasn't the best. I wasn't equipped. I was equipped with the knowledge biblically,
academically, through the bachelor.
But I was not prepared with the organizational leadership that we need for that, right? And those are some of the things that I didn't know until I realized something was missing. So then I started a church, and then I got married a couple of years. I started another church. My wife and I started another church, and then we moved to another city where we were starting another church, and that's where it dawned on me. I'm like, man, we're doing this. I'm doing this, but there's still something missing. And there was not a lot of resources then for church planters, for people like me that wanted to do this. And that's kind of what connected me to this bigger world of Exponential. All this to say that I was doing Spanish, like all of it was in el mundo latino, right? In the Latino Spanish speaking world. And the resources that I was looking for were not
for that context.
No había español. There was no Spanish stuff. Yeah. So then when I started looking out, for English content and English resources, that's where I kind of connected with Exponential and New Thing and other churches that were doing that. But to answer your question, the fact that I did it when I was 22 years old, that I just did it. Yeah. I'm proud of that. I just did it. Yeah. I could have listened to all the voices. Oh, that you're not old enough. You have no experience. All the things, but I didn't. I did it. I did learn along the way. I made many mistakes, and I'm okay with that. Yeah. We're not gonna get into something without making mistakes. Right. And then
sorry, but before you go to, so that is what you're most proud of, the fact that you went for that.
Yeah.
You believed, you trusted in that calling. You trusted in what God was telling you.
Yeah.
You go for it. Do you think that by doing that, how much of that action helps you the next 25 years versus had you been waiting 10, 15 years to get started? Like, just curious to see if there's something there that helped you, say, if it was because of that action that 25 years later, it helped me in different ways, where maybe you could, I don't know if you can touch on. Do you get what I'm asking?
I think you answered it right there. No, definitely. I mean, if I wouldn't have made that decision then, and then if I would have ended up coming back to that, I don't think it's a matter of like not eventually doing it, but it just delays the journey. Right? It just delays it. And I think I wouldn't be right now in this season having launched Exponential Español and now coaching thousands of Latino pastors in the U.S. and Latin America if I wouldn't have done the decision, because he just prepared it. It was the domino effect that if I wouldn't have done it, it would have just skipped a bunch of stuff that were foundational in getting to where I am today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes total sense. I think that's pretty cool too. That because I feel that I'm like that. I'll throw myself in the waters and figure it out as I go. There's a even with like the podcast. I'm not here trying to sharpen everything of the experience right now. I learned from some guy, some YouTube research that I've done. I love how he framed it. He said, "Get going, get good, and then get smart."
Yeah.
But that's his whole philosophy. Just get going. You want to do a podcast. You want to do a project. Let's talk about music. You want to be an artist. You want to make some music. You want to write some songs. Get going.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to do film. You want to direct. You want to write. Get going.
Yeah.
You want to do something. Just get going.
Just do it.
Go for it. Get it going. And then as you go, you're learning.
Yeah.
And from your experience of learning, then you get good at it.
Yep.
Then you start sharpening everything up. And then once you get really good at it, you get smart.
You get some white hairs.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you grow your beard.
Grow the beard.
And then you look smart.
So I get it, and I'm a firm believer of that. I'm a firm believer of going for it. So that's good for you that you did that, Obi.
Yeah.
So
and that happens to be the hardest step for anybody.
I agree.
The first one.
I agree.
Because you have to let go of what you wanted. You have to let go of a specific something that you've had, that you've held on to, whether it's a dream, whether it's a job, whether a career, whether it's a person, whatever it is. In order to get to that decision, you have to let go of something. Yeah. For me, it was the dream of being an architect, and that's the hardest thing. But if you make that first step, the others will follow, and it just doesn't necessarily get easier, but it just becomes, you just gain a little bit of muscle strength for making those decisions that will get you walking along the path that you want to walk.
Yeah. Obi, as we start getting into the closing, I have one question that I want to ask you. Why do you do this, other than the fact that God's called you, the fact that you felt the calling, the fact that you felt the peace? Why do this? Why else? Why be involved and be invested and get away from architectural stuff that you had wanted to do once? And I think there's obviously because of the people, but why? And again, besides God called me, therefore.
Yeah,
but it's like, what about that? Why? What's driving you?
Yeah, I think for me, the fact that I mentioned a little bit ago that there was not a lot of resources in Spanish. And I'm like, there's got to be resources. And if there isn't, who's going to produce them? Who's going to make them? Who's going to create them? Yeah. Right? And I'm like, well, I'm not the only one. Exponential Español is not the only one, but we want to have the resources to help the Latino pastors and leaders be able to be equipped.
And why? Why even that? Why care about equipping? Why care about resourcing? I'm just trying to go deeper a little bit. Why?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Why does that matter in a way?
Because if as a leader, and I'm thinking my first 3-4 years as a church planter without resources, there was nothing helping me be better. And I feel like I see a lot of leaders, constantly in different contexts, in different cities, in different states, in different countries. And it breaks my heart when I see someone who has such high potential to just be better, but not the resources to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I think we can go as far as the tools that we have to help us get there.
That's good. Say that one more time. That was good. We can only go.
I don't even know what it said.
Yeah, no, that was good. We can only go as far as the tools that'll help us get there.
Yes,
that's key.
Yeah. We can only get as far as the tools that will help us get there. And for me to see, I'm passionate about the church. I'm passionate about God's kingdom, through the church. I do believe that the church is the hope of the world. And in the context of the Latino world, I can talk hours about this.
Part two.
Part two,
That'll be
yeah.
part two.
I feel like there's so much potential in Latino leaders, and even in the context of U.S., right, in the United States.
Yeah.
And if we can give them more tools and resources, the impact that the church and the Latino church will have in society in this country, that will affect in a positive way, like all the spheres of society, it's gonna be huge,
Yeah.
right? So for me, I wanna just help leaders get where God called them to be.
Yeah. That's awesome, Obi. I mean, I could go 1,000 more questions, but time won't permit us today. Obi, as I asked you the why, right, and you shared a big reason why you're doing this. There's no doubt that you and your organizations have helped thousands of people with years of avoiding some headaches, because you're telling them from experience of what it's been like, and the fact that you've dealt with so many different ministries from different countries and different parts of the world, different contexts. You have a wealth of knowledge, of trustworthy resources. So as we close, let's go into the how can someone tap into those resources. Yeah. Where do you advise them to go? How do they get connected? What places should they look at for getting some of those
of the resources so Exponential Español, like our website has an easy way to just connect with us and engage with the community of multipliers, because that's what we want to create. We want to create a community of people, like-minded people that are thinking multiplication. That's what we call it. We're building a community of multipliers. And people can go to multiplicacion.org, which is the Spanish word for multiplication, multiplicacion.org. And it'll give you some info about the organization, some of the resources that we have available, some events and trainings that we have, joining the community of multipliers. And stay in touch with what we do.
And Obi, is there on the website, you guys are updating when you're having conferences or trainings, correct, and all that? Is there also tabs in there to look into your social medias, like to stay up to date with? Do you guys have your own social media for the organizations?
Yeah, and I'm thinking right now, I think we do have like the links to our social media.
Okay, we can put them. I'll put them in the bio here.
Yeah,
so
Exponential Español, without the ñ, because social media doesn't recognize Spanish letters like ñ, right? Seriously.
I didn't know that. Well, we'll tag it.
We'll Exponential Español. Yeah.
We'll definitely put it to make it easier for anyone to reach out.
Appreciate that.
And Obi, so before I let you go, before we close it, is there anything else that you'd like to throw in there as far as how? I'm just thinking of someone that's listening, that's watching up to this, and is still with us to this point. And they're probably either in. Let's look at maybe two examples. One is they're in their journey, starting. If you could just take a couple seconds or minutes just to speak to that person, to like, what would you say to them that's starting and they're like, I'm answering the call.
Yeah.
I got my paths, I got my options, but I'm here.
Yeah.
And I made that decision, or I'm thinking of that decision. What do you say to that person?
I think the first thing I would say is that we have to be convinced that God actually prepared something for us and a purpose, a work. Actually, Ephesians 2:10 says that He created us uniquely and wonderfully, and that we're His masterpiece. And then He adds, and He created us so that we could do the work that He prepared for each of us way back whenever. What that tells us is that God already created a purpose. He has a purpose for all of us. So when we believe that and we start walking that journey, we have to believe that there is a purpose that God created for me. And having that conviction will help us continue to walk that path when the roads get tougher, where, and it should be an encouragement to know that, okay, God, it will continue to show us the way. And the second thing is, don't do it alone.
Oh, come on.
Don't walk the journey alone. We're not meant to do anything alone. God created us to live in community, to journey in community.
That's good.
And this is for whatever, like whatever path that people are walking, whatever sphere of society, whether it's in entertainment or media or faith-based stuff, whatever, do it with someone that you like. It helps that you do that with someone you like, someone you can enjoy life with, because then there's someone there to encourage you when you're feeling down. You're there to encourage someone when someone is feeling down. And that's the best way to do life, in community with someone.
I love it. Obi, as you say that, again, I go back to Tyler Perry because I just watched this, and he says it in the documentary multiple times where things were not working his way. He was getting shut down. They didn't care. No one was supporting or whatever. He would do a show. Nobody showed up. And his go-to words with him and God was always like, God, you told me, you called me for this. Like, why aren't you helping me out if, like, you're the one that's telling me to do this? Like, because he even at one point he quit. He went a different route.
Wow.
And when they called him like, hey, we want you to do the show here, he was like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm done. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not wasting my time anymore. But they kind of convinced him like, hey, listen, like, you have a hot show. We're gonna help you.
Yeah.
And he was all right, fine, let's do it. And he does it. But the ups and downs have been that juggling of like, God, you called me, so I'm gonna keep going because I'm reminded that this isn't about me.
Yeah.
This is not about me. This is about you calling me. So I have to trust in that, which I think you're touching on, that being convinced that this is, because when it gets dark, when it gets heavy, when it gets hard, you got to go and fall back to something. And that something is, God called me.
Yep.
And therefore I'm going to keep pushing.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot of good in that. All right, Obi. Well, I won't take another moment away from you. I really appreciate you spending some time with me. Super short notice, super on the fly.
It's all good, bro. Loved it. Thank you.
If I can ever be of resource to you in any way, man, like, please let me know.
Appreciate
the pod. That. Like, in fact, I actually want to let you guys know where you guys can, call into the number 562-583-9895 if you have any questions. If this is a subject where you'd like to learn more about, you might have a specific question you want to ask, you can feel free to call in, text, email. All that stuff is in the bio. Put it in the comments. I'll make sure to tag all the organizations that Obi's a part of. But I know I can speak on behalf of Obi when I say we're all here to help. Like, he's here to help.
Yep.
We're here to help. I'm here to help. The podcast exists to help and take advantage of it. As Obi just mentioned, don't do it alone. And community is everything. And we're building that community. So reach out, share, your experiences with us. Again, 25 years with Obi, or 20 plus years doing what he's been doing. You'd be in great hands and get connected through their Exponential Español, through the new thing, through everything that, even through this podcast, as we try to build a community and helping each other step up and just do life together. So thank you for tuning in. If you find value in it, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate that's how you can help us so that we can continue to provide much more material and helping you guys. So Obi, thank you so much for coming.
Awesome. Awesome being here, bro.
I hope you had a good experience with me, and anytime you're around, let's have some more.
Well, we just got through the first year of the journey, so we need another podcast for the next 24 years of the story.
Of what's next.
of what's next.
Thank you, Obi. I really appreciate you, man. Thank you. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in to this point. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, and until then, we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Peace.